Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. You are here for another night and installment of YouTube Live with David Green. Tonight, we're going to be talking about market trends for 2023. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you in a minute. All right, we are here and we are live. Super excited to jump in and talk about tonight's topic. This is the night that we get out the magical crystal ball that hangs in the closet of every single real estate industry expert out there, every single mortgage lender, every real estate agent, anybody that's in the business. We all have these hiding in our closets, and we're going to bring them out. And we're going to bring it out today and talk about predictions for 2023, specifically for the housing market, what that means for you, how that's going to impact you. So super excited for that. Let's see what's going on here in the comments. We see Hector saying hi. Hello to you, Hector. Art, nice to see you. Great to be here. Gigi's Senior Travel Companion Services. What's going on? Thanks for coming out and hanging out. Javier says, ni hao. David and Kyle, great to see you. And Gigi, once again, coming from Custer, South Dakota. Very nice. Let us know where you're from. Drop it in the comments. We definitely want to hear more from you and get to know about you. To get you guys started for tonight's YouTube Live, if you haven't gotten to be in on one of these before, well, first of all, welcome. Do us a favor, hit that like button, but also hit that subscribe button. That really helps the YouTube algorithm. That helps us get this out to thousands of people where we can talk about important things like the current status of the market. But here's how it works. Tonight, we're specifically talking around the topic of predicting the market trends for 2023. We're going to kind of dive into that. We're going to go over some different articles tonight and really get David's spin on that and what that means and how you should interpret that and how that actually impacts you as somebody who is looking to build wealth or build financial independence or learn to invest in real estate. So here's the ground rules. Here's how it works. I'm going to go ahead and drop this little ticker in here at the bottom. And you'll see a phone number scrolling at the very bottom. It says 833-777-0309. If you want to come in and you want to come be here live, if you got a question specifically around market trends, specifically around what's going to be happening in 2023, or you just want to share your opinion. Maybe you've got an opinion that nobody's ever heard before. Maybe you have an opinion that is contrary to what David is saying or what the articles we're reading have to say. We want to talk about those with you. We welcome you here to chat about it. So if you have a question or you want to come in and talk about that, send that text message to the number below on your screen. So let's see who else we have here hanging out with us tonight. So, yep, Jimmy, what's going on, my man? Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Bidcar says hello. We have Green That House from Yosemite. Jose's from LA. We got Paul from New York. Nice to meet you. So we got people all over the place representing the entire United States. We got Anchorage, Alaska here, Newport News, Virginia, Jason from Oakland. I love it. Very, very cool. Great to see all these people here tonight. And David, what's going on with you? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was pretty good, actually. God was good to me. I was very sick for like almost a week before Thanksgiving. And I don't know, I'm not a doctor. I wish I knew more about medicine, but I'm pretty sure it was a virus. And the symptom was like, I couldn't keep food down, which was weird. Like I just couldn't digest food. I was horribly nauseous. Like we had to cancel one of these because it was so bad. I just couldn't really focus. And I was thinking like, dude, Thanksgiving is going to be terrible because the thought of food was horrible. And the day or the night before Thanksgiving, Wednesday night, I got a little bit of relief. And then I was actually starving from not eating much for the last couple of days. So I got to eat quite a bit on Thanksgiving. And today I actually feel pretty good. So I made it to the gym twice today to try to turn some of that protein from the turkey into muscle. I know you made it to the gym as well. Kyle and I are both trying to get our butts back into gear. We could definitely use you guys' prayers right now. He and I are both going through some struggles right now, but trying to set the example for how to handle struggles, right? Like whenever you have that adversity is your opportunity to kind of reinvent yourself. I was listening to Jordan Peterson talk today about how when you're living life the right way, you are constantly in this journey of letting a version of you die and a better version of you be born. Right. And like, if there's anything that causes fights or quarrels or arguments in my life, it's a person either in a business, in a company, on a team I'm on, anything where they are like not committed to getting better. And they just like, take me as I am, accept me the way that I am, right? That will almost always cause conflict because I don't think any of us ever really get to say that if you want to win, right? You guys are all here because you want to learn how to buy an investment property. Well, the version of you that you are right now isn't good enough to be able to get that done. That's why you're here to learn, right? It takes humility to accept like who I am right now is not enough. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here listening to this about how to get better. There's nothing shameful about accepting that you need to improve. Every time I go to the gym, what are my actions saying? I am not good enough. I am not strong enough. I am not fit enough. I have to go here to be able to do better, right? Like every single thing in life that we want that we don't have is a reflection of us not being a good enough version of ourselves. And if we commit to growing and changing, that doesn't have to be a terrible thing. It actually is a healthy thing because that ambition that drives us forces us to discard the parts of ourselves that are useless and a waste of time and replace it with things that are useful. So if you can learn to look at life like that, like most of us are trying to run this race carrying baggage, and the more baggage you can drop off, the faster you can run the race. And then the more beneficial you can be to other people. And the more beneficial you are to other people, the more money that you make. Yeah, it doesn't have such a stigma. I just noticed it's very common in today's culture to have a very strong spirit of like, take me as I am. Don't try to change me. I just need to find someone that's going to accept me for the person I am right now. But if the person that you are right now is that great, you'd already have everything you want. What do you think, Kyle? You think I'm crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy at all. First of all, for those of you that don't know David on a personal level, this is how David works. He goes straight to the depth, right? We could have like had some small talk here about, how was the mashed potatoes, how was the stuffing, what was the weather like, but we went right into it, and I like that. So I agree. There's a book that I read actually called Changes That Heal a long time ago. And he talks about, it's written by Dr. Henry Cloud. And he talks about how there's basically two elements that are required for growth in anybody: truth and grace. And he says, basically, if you have truth with no grace, you basically have a literal hell, right? It's legalistic. You're not actually supporting growth. But then if you have grace with no truth, which is what you're describing, you basically have basically license to do whatever you want. And there's no actual opportunity to grow. So you kind of need both in your life in order to grow, whether that be in the gym or with your finances or your personal life or your relationships. It kind of attributes to everything.
That is a really good point. And it goes into a deeper pattern that I think we'd all do well to recognize that often having one thing in life is not enough to get you where you need to be. Sometimes you need at least two things working with each other to get you out of a slump. So if you look at like an airplane needs wings to fly, but it also needs resistance from the wind. If you have wind resistance but no wings, you don't climb. And if you have wings but no wind resistance, you just sit there. Both of them have to be present in order to get somewhere. You can see this with wealth building. There's people that make a ton of money, but they're not good at saving it. They are not any better off than the person who doesn't make very much money. And conversely, you can be really good at saving money, but if you don't make any of it, you don't really get anywhere. Like you got to be good at both of them. And there's many things in life where if you want to be, you want to see changes, you want to get to another level, you want to be happier, there has to be a minimum of two things. Sometimes there needs to be like 10 things. That can be more complicated, right? But in general, when you guys come to these lives, when you're listening to this, even if you're not here live, you're listening to it later. My philosophy is that if you were how do I want to say this? You have right now exactly what you deserve. Okay. I have exactly what I deserve. It's not like the world owes me something or I would have more if somebody else did something differently. What I have is exactly what I deserve. Now, most of the reason why that is because it lives in my subconscious where I don't want to deal with it. Okay. Like I'm not a perfect person. I have a ton of issues, a ton of fears, a ton of insecurities. I just keep them in my subconscious where I don't have to look at them all the time. So I'm not aware of them. Right. But they still affect me whether I like that or not. And so if I want to have more money, more wealth, more friends, more influence, more respectability, more of a sense of humor, anything that you're looking for, there's something in you that's got to change in order to get that. So what we're encouraging people to do is to take what's in the dark, what's in your subconscious, bring it into your conscience. If there's some negative emotions that come with that, just be humble and deal with it. That's fine. But as you change, the things you're looking for in life will come to you. And money is just a super easy and simple way to monitor like how much you are willing to change.
What are some ways that you've seen in your own life or the people that you've coached along the way to help them take what's in the subconscious and bring it to the conscious of like, hey, these are the things I need to work in? Because I think
Hmm.
one of the biggest reasons why we don't do that is because, like you mentioned with the plane taking off, there's resistance, right? And with
Yes.
that resistance, it creates, and that truth of what I was calling it creates like pain. And a
Yeah.
lot of times we want to resist that pain and get away from it, which is why we bury it in our subconscious. From your experience, like what are some ways that people can maybe start to explore that and help with that?
Oh, that we could do a whole show on this, man. That's such a good question. I think the first thing is you have to recognize that, how do I want to put this? It's how you interpret things that matters more than the things that happen. Okay. There's people that go through pain and and then run away from it because they don't want to feel it anymore. And there's people that go through pain and interpret that differently so that they let the pain be the indicator of where changes can be made. Right. So there's certain human beings that will literally sit in an ice bath to start their morning. They will show up to a CrossFit workout and willingly put themselves through pain. Um, they will put themselves in situations in life like with a therapist. You rarely ever go to your therapist and talk about stuff that makes you feel good. It's almost always like things that elicit pain, right? But what I found and what you found, Kyle, is that pain is the most powerful motivator in the planet. In fact, compared to pain, I don't know that any motivations or anything, right? Like you ask someone, why do you want wealth? Most people they know the right answer to say, oh, I want to have more time to spend with my kids and I want freedom. That all sounds nice. It's usually I want out of pain. I don't like the job I have. I don't like being poor. I don't want to have to say no to myself all the time. I don't like to be in pain. I want to get out of it. And when you're not in pain, it's very difficult to stay motivated, right? The beautiful thing about life is we've all got like 99% of our life in our subconscious, which is where all our pain is. We're never going to run out of this fuel. That's very important. But we subdue it, we numb it. Or we interpret pain as it's bad and should be run from rather than it's a fuel that I need if I want to get to the next level. If I asked everybody who's listening to this right now, who are the people that you respect the most? Okay, like Kyle, just throw out a couple names of human beings that you're like, I really respect that person.
Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant.
Anyone else?
I keep going. Matt Bodro, you.
Okay, that's very sweet. Michael and Kobe are like perfect examples of this, right? They were people that endured massive pain. So like Michael Jordan was an incredible good basketball player and he hit a limit where he's like, I'm already better than everyone else. He lost his motivation. So what did Michael do to create more motivation for himself? He added pain. He would take an insult someone said and he would blow it up as big as he could get it because that would hurt him. It would cause him pain. It would motivate him to work harder. He would put himself through more difficult workouts. He would set a standard incredibly high. We have to win the championship every single year. He didn't just say I have to be the best player in the league. He said I have to be the best player of all time. And not being the best player of all time created him pain. Kobe Bryant was the same way, right? Like they figured out the secret to pushing yourself was to make sure you're always in pain because that's the thing that motivates us. And if you went on and on about like whatever people we all think have accomplished amazing accomplishments, they all, every one of them, 100% had mastered this understanding that pain is motivation. Like too much pain can break you and you'll quit. So you have to kind of monitor how much you allow at a time. But running from pain is the quickest way to ensure a mediocre lifestyle. And so I just want to encourage everybody that's listening to this. Like you're here because you're in pain. You're at the right place. This is like you want more. You should want more. We're going to talk about how to want more. And I guess on the concept of pain, the economy is becoming more and more painful. In fact,
Mm.
it should have been painful this whole time. We've just been printing money like methamphetamine and we haven't felt any of our pain, right? You guys ever seen anybody that's on methamphetamine? They don't really feel pain. They think they're Superman. That's been our
Mhm.
economy for the last several years. We've avoided any kind of pain and any kind of motivation. And now we have some pain coming down the pipe. I didn't plan to transition like this, but It actually makes sense. So I want to make sure that as we're all going to feel that pain, we actually convert it into fuel to let us do better rather than let it overwhelm us and just go look for something to sedate it.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about that pain because I think we as humans just want to naturally resist it and run away from it and then just go hide. And what you're saying is like, no, like step up towards it, lean into it, and then look at how you're interpreting that pain, right?
Yes.
What's the
Yes.
story that you're telling yourself with that pain? I was just at a writer's workshop with a well known author named Bob Goff, and he was talking about how people will tell themselves stories to get a certain result from whatever they're going through. And he told the story of basically his great grandfather had it was actually his great great uncle or something like that had been out working on some farm in eastern Oregon and got hit by a train and died. And they had to throw his body in a wheelchair and then, or in a wheelbarrow rather, and take him all the way back. And they just dumped his great uncle's body in front of the house. And that was how he died. Right. And then years later, he actually met like a distant cousin. He says, "Hey, we have that same uncle that remember he got hit by the train and all this stuff happened to him. They dumped him off in the wheelbarrow." And the cousin says, "No, that actually didn't happen. He actually just abandoned the family. He left the family. The family made up that story of pain because that was a better story that they were telling themselves than, hey, we got abandoned." And they
Mm.
use that to make the family stronger. So a lot of times we do the same thing where we feel like we're stuck and we don't know how to get out of it. And we have to tell ourselves the right story to be able to grow. So
Or
just out
not
of
tell
curiosity,
ourselves the wrong story. That's another thing that
yeah.
people will do, right? Like sometimes something will happen and it's our own fault. All right. Like I'm trying to think
Mhm.
of an example. Like you stop pouring into the people that are around you. And then those people decide to leave and find someone that will pour out to them. And instead of telling yourself the story of I took people for granted, I got lazy, I
Mhm.
thought I was entitled and they should always come here, we say they left me, they abandoned me, they don't care about me, right? The same action can be interpreted wildly different, right? If you tell yourself I took someone for granted, now you have to face the fact that you're not good enough in your current state, right?
Mhm.
That's extreme ownership that we talk about all the time. And now you are in pain because you realize you're not good enough and you're motivated to change. I don't want to take the next person for granted. That's less likely to happen. If you tell yourself they abandoned me, they let me down, they left me, well, they need to go make the change, right? You don't need to
Yep.
do anything different. You get to stay the exact same as you are right now. And what do you think, Kyle? If you stay the exact same, do you think the next person is going to stick around? Or do you think they're more likely to leave?
They're gonna leave too.
Yeah. And you're going to be stuck telling yourself the same story of I was abandoned over and over. And there's a lot of people out there that live their entire lives like this. They are constantly telling themselves a story where someone else is the villain and they're the victim. And they're experiencing a life of not having the stuff that comes from success, not having more money, not having more friends, not having more health, not having more whatever, with no hope of changing. And if someone comes and tries to say, I think the problem is you, those people usually snap at them, right? Like they don't want to have to accept that maybe there's an issue going on with themselves that's leading to the same pattern to happen. So for everybody that's here right now, like if you don't have three houses, there's nothing wrong with that unless you want three houses. But if you don't have three houses, it's because you're not the kind of person that deserves three houses. It's not because anybody else has stopped you from getting it. And the good news is if you want to become that kind of person, we'll show you what to do. We'll show you how to get there. The bad news is it's going to involve pain. Okay, like Kyle, you're working out a ton and you're eating like once a day right now, right? Is there some discipline involved with only being able to eat once a day?
A lot of discipline, yes.
And isn't discipline the word we used to describe not giving into pain?
Yep.
That's you're in pain a lot, but if you want to hit your goals, you're gonna be in pain. And every time you go to the gym and work out, if it's a good workout, isn't there pain?
Every time.
You just
If
accept
there's
it.
not,
You're
I'm
not
doing
afraid
something
of it.
wrong.
That's exactly right. You're doing something wrong if you're not feeling the pain, right? That's your finances are no different than your physical body or your other relationships or anything else. To sum all it up, running from pain is what keeps people locked in the place where they are discontent and not happy. It also leaves you vulnerable to predators and gurus coming after you to take your money because they're always offering you a solution that does not involve pain. No. You don't have to change anything about yourself. Just take my course and pay 50,000 and you're guaranteed to make $500,000 flipping a house. When you're trying to avoid pain, you're always susceptible to the drug dealer that's come along and give you something to sedate it.
One other thing I want to add to that, especially going back to your analogy of like, hey, if you want to own 3 homes and you don't have 3 homes yet, you deserve that. You're absolutely right. And I think there's a level of freedom that we have when we just come out and say, hey, listen, the reason I don't have 3 homes right now, and I've been working on it for the last 2 years, is because I haven't made it a priority. Right. And actually just being realistic, like the reason I haven't gone to the gym is not because of XYZ. Oh, my wife won't let me go, or my schedule's too busy, or I don't have enough time, or whatever, right? We can make no, I just haven't made it a priority. And just by saying that out loud and saying, you know what, I don't have 3 homes yet, that's okay. Take the guilt off. Because a lot of times too, we live in guilt and shame because we feel the pain, but at the same time, we're not being realistic with the fact that, well, yeah, the reason I wasn't doing that, I just wasn't making it a priority. And that's okay. Let's start taking the steps to make it a priority now.
And that's all we're here to talk about, right? I could tell you guys, I give you all the information we're going to get into. I could tell you what the market's going to do. I could predict with 100% certainty where we're going to be in 2023. Not that I can like always do that, but I've done it for the most part as long as I've been around in the public space. It won't help you at all. It doesn't matter if you know what's coming, if you're not actually positioned to do something about it. And what's stopping you from being able to do something about it is you. Just like what's stopping me from being able to do what I want to do is me. So the first step in all of this is just to recognize we're the problem, embrace humility, understand pain's going to come. Pain doesn't have to break you. You don't have to tell yourself a stupid story to make it so it's not your fault. Actually welcome pain because it's a powerful motivator. And once pain's gone, like it's gone. That's the awesome thing. Like the pain, Kyle, that you were feeling during your workout isn't still there right now. You're feeling good right now. You got endorphins that are pumping right now. You get the results, and tomorrow's workout's going to be better. Pain is not ever present and never going away.
Yeah, we have a saying in my household, pain is not an enemy, pain is a friend. And pain can be a good thing. That doesn't mean we're always just going to go look for pain and we're always going to throw ourselves into pain. Sometimes you can have success, I think, without pain. But what I tell my kids all the time is pain, don't run away from pain. Sit in it, think about it, learn from it, see what you can learn about it. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, don't try to do it without pain. I don't know anyone that's going to accomplish anything without pain. I don't, at least no one that we respect. I would challenge anyone here to say, I really respect this person or their accomplishments, and then show me how they didn't feel pain. All right, Kyle, where do you think we should go?
All right, I'm going to share my screen here. I say we jump right into the nitty gritties here and start reading some articles and breaking them down. So actually, before we even do this, David, I did have one question. When we talk about crystal ball, right? We're in crystal ball territory right now. We're predicting the future. We're predicting what's going to happen next year. All the pundits and the analysts are predicting what's going to happen next year. What should just people be thinking around that? How should we approach these types of conversations in the very beginning?
The conversations with each other, with ourselves, like
just predictions in general. Like if I'm going to go read this article on 2023 predictions, how should I be approaching that? Should I be looking at it, with a grain of salt? What's the overall kind of analysis?
That's a great question. The first thing is you have to understand you're being misled with anything you read. Period. You rarely ever read anything that's just the facts. Okay. It's going to be the facts with their interpretation. The second thing is you're even being misled if it's just the facts, because they're not giving you every fact. They're picking facts out of this pot that will support a narrative that you're being told. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not even saying this is negative because they own the news company. They could do whatever they want. Okay. When you go tell a story to your friend, you typically tell the part of the story that makes you look good and you leave out the stuff that makes you look bad. Even if you try to be objective, you still spin the part where you did it bad by saying, well, here's the reason why I did it. Okay. Yeah. This is human nature. We are always, always, always trying to make ourselves look better than what we really do. And the news isn't any different, right? The second piece is read it carefully, because even sometimes when they're giving you honest figures, they're portraying it in a way that makes it seem more impactful than it really is. Okay. So you might have a market where it says listings or inventories up 190%. And you go, good God, that's like almost doubled or tripled what it was before. This is insane. It must be crashing. But they went from having like 8 houses available to 22 or something like that. And they're still being sold within 6 days. Okay, like you could easily make an argument that like a strip of homes on a beach in Malibu has quintupled because 2 houses came on the market that weren't there before. So be careful before you just take what they're saying. You go, oh my God, this is miserable. Another thing is understand it's always local. Sometimes when they're giving you information about the market as a whole, it sounds more significant, but your local market isn't any different at all, and vice versa. So where you're investing is what matters, not just necessarily what's happening to the country as a whole. And then the last piece I'll say is don't assume it will stay this way forever. Markets change so damn fast, so quickly. Every market change I've ever seen change. Like no one knew this one was coming. The Fed raised rates, they raised them again. The next thing you know, they became draconian. They're just like bam, bam, bam. Like rates are coming out. The market cooled off. It was red hot, cooled pretty quick. I've seen markets that were super cool. Nothing was happened within 2 weeks, immediately take off. Okay. It doesn't take much when there's this much pressure. I always call it like the kink in the hose. Okay. If you're just looking at the water coming out of the hose and it's dribbling out, it's easy to say, oh, there's no water. There's no demand. But you don't know if someone's purposely put a kink in that. And when the kink comes out, now you know, well, was there no water or was something artificially holding that water back? And so many times I've seen people say, oh, look, there's no water coming out. This is proof that there's a crash or whatever happens. And then as soon as that man-made kink or artificial kink comes out, boom, the market's up and running again. So I'm not telling you guys the market's hot, the market's cold. I'm just saying don't get too caught up in any one narrative. It changes incredibly fast. Very, very quickly. So I think you're better off to look at what's going on right now and ask yourself what strategy works in this environment. And how do I set myself up to play the odds? I don't know what the market's going to do, but it's likely to do this. So how do I come up with a strategy that will help me win if that happens and protect my losses if it doesn't happen? Than it is to try to say, I'm going to bet 100% on black and just hope that black comes.
That's perfect. And that's a little bit about what this article talks about is investing strategies and what to consider. So let's jump right into it. So with mortgage rates, by the way, this is bank rate, real estate housing market predictions for 2023. With mortgage rates escalating higher, home sales and in some areas, home prices hitting the brakes and an increased uncertainty felt throughout the market, many homeowners, prospective sellers, and prospective buyers are nervous about next year. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this. And for good reason. Consider that at the time of this writing, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate was 7.04%, inflation rate at an alarming 8.2%, and sales of previously owned homes dropped 1.5% in September from August to a seasonally adjusted rate of 4.71 million units per NAR, which means that the existing homes are selling at the slowest pace observed in about a decade. So this specific article, we're going to be kind of breaking apart. We're going to take a look at it. And what they did was they actually reached out to several industry experts, each of whom offered different forecasts, different projections, right? Home on mortgage rates, home prices, competition, housing supply, sales activity, and then affordability. And so, again, this is really what David is talking about. That the key thing you want to be aware of here is that these are from different quote unquote industry experts. So you get 10 different people lined up. Guess what you're going to get? 10 different opinions. And so we're going to break this down, starting with mortgage rates continuing to climb. So I'll dive right into it. With interest rates roughly doubling from their lows in the early 2022, it's a fair assumption that the cost of financing a home won't be coming down this year. But how about looking into 2023? Is there any light at the end of this dark tunnel? So there's a couple different variations of what some people say. So some people say no. Continued inflation, overall high interest rates, and a potential recession and geopolitical tensions will force 30-year and 15-year mortgage rates up through next year and will bring the two rates closer together as short-term risks rise. And this is coming from Dennis Shirskashov, a strategist at awning.com and a professor of economics at City University of New York, who foresees the 30 and 15-year benchmark loans averaging 8.75% and 8.25% is what he's thinking it's going to be across next year. Then Mr. Robert Johnson, professor at Creighton University, he weighed in and he shared the same sentiments. He thinks by the end of 2023, financial market participants expect that the Fed will have increased the target Fed funds by from 175 to 200 basis points from current levels. That would translate into 30-year and 15 years around 8.5 and 7.7. Then we have Rick Sharga. He's the executive vice president of market intelligence for Atom Data Solutions, which basically analyzes real estate and property data. He's a little bit more hopeful. He posits that rates peak at about 8.8% and 7.25% for 30 and 15-year loans in early 2023, then gradually come down over the course of the year somewhat to hang in the 6% range, 5.25. This is entirely dependent on the Fed's ability to get inflation under control and ease up on its aggressive rate increases. So right here, David, we've got three different people. Two are saying, hey, rates are going to continue to go up. One of them says, hey, they're going to go up, but they're going to come down. What should we be considering when we're looking at rates and we're just considering that going into 2023?
Well, the first thing is if rates come down, the market's going to get hot. It's going to be hard to get a house. If rates go up, the market's going to get cooler and people are going to be worried about the market. There is no like win for investors here. You can't think like what is supposed to happen. All right. It's very similar to a lot of other things in life. Let's say you're playing football and they take, one of their linebackers like the safety or two safeties and they bring them up and they put them in the box. Well, it's harder to run, but it's easier to pass. There's no right or wrong way to play defense. There's just the way that it's set up will make certain things easier or other things more difficult. So investors asking the question of like, where are rates going probably don't understand that if they get what they want, it won't be good for them. I would also add to that, like the way that I'm kind of playing the game right now is I think rates are going to keep going up and then I think that they are going to come down. So I don't know that's going to happen. So I don't want to gamble on that. Please hear me carefully. I'm not saying just buy a bad deal and don't worry, you're going to be fine when rates come down. What I'm saying is if I get a smaller return than I want right now, but then rates do come down significantly and I can refinance, that now becomes a really good return. So in other words, higher rates push prices lower in general. Okay. Lower rates push prices higher. If we are artificially pushing rates higher, and prices are coming down, but cash flow is still not really existent, and you can lock in this low price, but then rates actually come down, that difference when you go to refinance is going to make this thing cash flow more. And what's more, you locked in the low price, then the rates come down. Well, that pushes the prices high. So now you're actually building equity. You can even potentially get a cash out refinance where you get a lower rate and you get money out and you lower your payment. Okay. So even though there's all this doom and gloom and all these investors that are complaining about these high rates and you can't make deals work, it's because they're looking at what's right in front of them. If you look a little bit down the road and you see, ooh, if I get some really good, solid real estate in some of the best locations that are growing, my return's not super sexy right now. But what happens when rates do come down? Now this like base hit or walk is starting to look like a triple or a home run very quickly. So I don't want you guys to go buy houses you can't afford and just hold your breath and be like, oh, rates didn't come down for 12 months. So I'm losing my house. So never do something that stupid. But I'm happy to get houses that don't bring in a super big return. If they're the best around, they're in the best location, they're very unique, they're going to go up more than others when rates come down, because I do believe that the government is keeping rates high, thinking that they can curb inflation. And I've talked about it before. It's not going to stop inflation. I'll let you decide, Kyle, if you think we should get into that whole thing again.
Yeah, and that actually is coming up here in a second. By the way, if you guys are getting any kind of value out of this, please make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That really helps with the show that we're doing here. And just a reminder, if you just joined us, make sure if you want to come in and chat with David and myself about the housing market, about your predictions for 2023, or maybe there's something around pain. Maybe you want to come in and talk a little bit about the pain that you're experiencing in your life, and you want me and David to analyze that pain and maybe help pull it out of your subconscious into the conscious to help you make progress moving forward. send a text message to the number below, 833-777-0309. We would love to talk to you some more about that. So, yeah, basically, Nadia Evangelo, she's the senior economist and director for the real estate research for the National Association of Realtors. She basically gives three different rates scenarios that could occur next year. So, scenario number one, like you were talking about, inflation continues to remain high, which then forces the Fed to raise the interest rates repeatedly, like we've seen for basically the last 3 quarters of this year. And that means that mortgage rates will then continue to climb, possibly near 8.5%. Scenario number two is the consumer price index responds to the Fed's rate hikes, and there's a gradual deceleration of inflation, causing mortgage rates to stabilize near 7 to 7.5%. And then scenario three would be, hey, the Fed raises rates repeatedly to curb inflation and the economy falls into a recession. This could cause rates to likely drop to 5%. Curious what you think about instance number three, David, where if the Fed continues to raise rates to curb inflation, but then it forces the economy to fall into a recession, and then the rates would actually drop down to 5%. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the rates wouldn't drop to 5 because we went into a recession. The Fed would drop the rates because we fell into a recession. Okay. This is probably going to be more nuanced than most people listening are going to be familiar with, but I'm going to give you guys the information anyways. My opinion on this, obviously nobody knows for sure. The general consensus my entire life has been, when you lower interest rates, you speed up the economy and you create inflation. When you raise interest rates, you slow down the economy and you lower inflation. Here's part of the problem. Nobody took the time to define what inflation is. So inflation tends to be spoken about when they're talking about the price of goods and services. That makes sense to us, but that's not inflation. Inflation is actually defined economically as the amount of the currency that's in supply, which is, of course, tied to the price. If there's more currency, then the prices are going to go up, but it's not the same thing. All right. So stay with me here, guys. If you haven't heard me talk about this, it's important when it comes to investing in real estate, and more importantly, it's determining where the market is going to go. You can stop the increase of prices by raising interest rates. That is true. If you're going to go buy a car and the car costs $40,000 and you don't want it to go to $45,000, maybe you want it to drop to $35,000, raising interest rates will make that car more expensive if you're financing it. So it will bring the price of cars down in general. Same for houses, anything that you're borrowing money. If you're going to start a business, you're less likely to take out a loan at 12% to start a business than if interest rates are at 3%. Okay. The question most people would ask is, well, like, why don't we just keep rates low all the time if that's good for the economy? It's because prices will go up when you do that. Also, if you do hit a recession, the way that you like give yourself a little boost to get out of it is by dropping the interest rates. Well, if they're already very, very low, you can't drop them anymore, right? Like, you have no safety net in this case. Here's where the government is making their mistake. They think that by raising rates, they're stopping inflation, but they're not. They're just stopping the increase in prices. That's not the same as inflation. They can't stop inflation because they've already printed money, or they print money, but they created currency that is now in circulation that will lead to higher prices, and you can't stop it. You've already made a ton more money than we had. Prices are going to go up. They cannot prevent it, but they can put a kink in the hose. What I'm saying is the water pressure they can't turn off, but they can force it closed by raising rates. And if water is still squeaking through, this is probably a pretty solid analogy. I wasn't thinking about this before. If water's still squeaking through with the kink, they can kink it harder by raising rates. Okay. There's a difference between how much money's making it through the hose and how much water pressure is actually going there. When you just leave it all alone on its own, like pure capitalism, whatever water comes through is whatever water pressure you have. But when they intervene like this, it becomes confusing. So many people think there's a crash coming because they've raised rates, they put a kink in the hose, and now they're like, oh, prices are going to have to go down to nothing. That's not the case. All right. So at a certain point, they will acknowledge, oh, crap, we can't make prices come down. And they'll give up on this entire idea of kinking the hose. They'll just let interest rates go to where they are. The economy will do better. But as soon as that happens, prices will skyrocket. What I'm getting at, this is a bad situation. Okay, this isn't a temporary thing that we can fix by raising rates. That's a temporary solution. This is a very bad situation for our country's currency. If you're in a job where you get paid and your wages don't go up and down with the economy, which is most jobs, it legit sucks for you. Like there's no, if you're a teacher and you get paid, 45,000 a year with 3% raises, I feel for you, because inflation's going to, because prices are going to run up because we've already created this inflation. They can't keep them low forever. And everything you're buying is going to cost more than the money that you're making proportionally. If you're a person like Kyle and I, whose income generally is tied to the price of the asset we're selling, it doesn't hurt us as much. We're in a position where if inflation makes prices of homes go higher, our income goes up with that, right? So for a lot of people listening to this, if you're locked into like a job with a utility company or a government job and they don't give out frequent raises, or you're not in an entrepreneurial situation where your work can lead to more money, you're going to find in the next 5 to 10 years, your income getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. Even if you're getting raises of 5 or 10%, if the price of the stuff you buy is going up by 15 or 20%, you never actually catch up. All right. So this isn't like what do we do? What's the market happening right now? This is much more of a, over the next 20, 30 years, you're going to feel much more poor than what you feel like right now. This is the very beginning of a nasty scenario that we have where we're going to feel a lot of pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's why we're making such a big shift and a big focus right now towards the work that you're putting out, which is pillars, right? And the shift that we're seeing in the mastermind that we have, basically focusing. Real estate investing is a piece, right? But there are other pillars to building wealth, especially like you said, if you're that school teacher that gets the 3% raises. Well, you got to make sure you got a really clean budget, number one. But number two, you got to look for other ways to increase your income, right? And that's like the whole purpose of the mastermind, and all the conversations literally that you and I are having, David, is like, how do we cut down what we need to cut down? But once we slim it down, how do we bulk up? How do we get more money and earn more income? But then how do we wisely invest that income to create more wealth?
Yeah, thank you. And my heart is afraid for all the people that heard the message over the last 10 years, save your money, buy real estate, retire. Okay, like get some investment property, quit your job, rest on your laurels, you're going to be good. That was not bad advice for the economic environment that we were in. Okay. And that could work when we're just printing money and printing money and printing money, and making money is really easy. And like, especially if you own an asset, the values are going up, the rents are going up. Yeah, you can just chill and live off of the work you did before. But we printed so much money that it's making everything become more expensive. And if you built yourself up to $5,000 a month in cash flow and you think you can retire, that $5,000 a month with inflation is going to become worth $4,000 and $3,000 and $2,000 and $1,600. And it's going to continue going in a path where you actually have to go back to work because your cash flow is not enough to support your lifestyle. And I keep saying inflation is like carbon monoxide. You don't see it coming. You don't feel it. All right. It's just one day you go to the grocery store, like, man, why is this so high? And you keep thinking in the back of your head it's going to come down, but it doesn't. It keeps going up. And your savings starts to dwindle and your credit card bills start to get higher. You don't adjust your quality of life right off the bat because it's not a shock to you. You're not just like, whoa, what the hell was this? It just is like mildly annoying. Like, that the proverb of the frog in the pot, right? You just stay there until you're slowly cooked. And then by the time you realize there's a problem, it's not that it's too late, but you're way behind trying to catch up. I want everyone who's listening to this to get ahead, to be thinking, okay, the money I'm making is going to be worth significantly less later. So I either got to make more of it, get into a better career where it's inflation protected, or I need to be much more serious about saving the money I'm making and investing it right now so that when that happens, the assets I have will retain their value because the income that I'm making isn't going to be there. It's a much more serious and dire situation than is being talked about. What you'll find is in 5 years and 10 years, everyone's going to be angry and they're all going to be criticizing this administration and the previous administration for what they did. And this video will look like Nostradamus. Okay. And so at that point, either you're going to look back to now and say, I did something so that I'm sitting at the top of the mountain when the flood came, or you're going to be drowning, swimming, trying to find a way to get onto that raft with Jack. And you're going to feel like, I guess it'd be the other way, right? Rose was on the raft and Jack was the one trying to find a place to get on it, wishing and just angry that you can't go back 10 years and make some changes.
Is Nostradamus still a thing?
Like, do people know who he is?
Yeah, do you think like younger people know who he is?
I'm afraid to answer that because I think I've become old.
You may have just aged yourself.
Anyone
David.
in the comments, do you guys know who Nostradamus is? Is this a reference that you are thoroughly confused by? We're going to find out. We are on YouTube, not TikTok, right? This is a little bit of an older.
Yeah. I saw a nope there from the Tatty investor. Herndon says yes. Thank you for validating that.
Yeah, but the Tatty investor is the same age as me, so.
Okay, there you go. A vampire, very nice. Okay, yeah, we're seeing people know who he is still.
Not as you were thinking.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know who he is basically, I don't know, a horoscope guy, right? A guy that would predict the future, and you used to show up in newspapers. I don't think they're putting him in print anymore. I don't even know where he came from, but he was somebody who would basically tell the truth or tell the future, basically, right?
Yeah, he predicted. I don't know exactly what he predicted, but he predicted a lot of things. Like everybody here knows. All right, I'm feeling a little bit better.
You'll feel so bad. All right, let's jump back into this. Speaking of home values, right? What is going to happen with home values? Interestingly, due to low inventory, home prices won't drop in 2023, per Evangelo's prediction. She says, I expect pricing to be relatively flat, increasing by only 1 percentage point. That's funny because all we hear about is how the market is crashing and your home value is going to go down and you're going to lose all this money in your home. Yet they're saying it's actually going to flatten out for 2023. Johnson, though, feels that the higher interest rates will undoubtedly hurt home values and pricing. Soft real estate market with prices at levels lower than the current levels will result. That's not great news for sellers, but welcome news for house hunters. There's plenty of potential buyers still patiently waiting to enter the market. Assuming home prices ease, you'll start to see some of these buyers emerge, especially the all cash or lower loan to value purchasers who are less impacted by any interest rate concerns. Home values on a national level are almost certain to decline, at least modestly, perhaps 5 to 10%, according to Sharga. Some of the more expensive markets will potentially see larger declines, limited inventory, strong credit quality among current mortgage holders, and demand from young adults looking to become homeowners should prevent prices from falling even further. So along those lines, David, with the prediction that, hey, the housing prices will likely drop to some degree, but doesn't sound like it's going to hit rock bottom or, you're going to lose all the value in your house. What should people be considering in terms of home values, whether they're looking to sell or if they're looking to buy?
Well, I think they said they expect it to decrease to a 1% increase a year for the housing market in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question I would ask people. They're all waiting for a crash, right? We're all expecting a crash. Well, how do we typically know, Kyle, if the market's crashed? It's not a trick question.
If like the prices are really, really low.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, how do we know the market crash? Well, the prices are way less than they are now, right?
Yeah.
Well, if it was growing at 25% and now it's growing at 1%, is that not a crash?
I guess not, because the prices are still high, or at least they're just not as high as they were.
Yeah, but if prices were growing at 1% and then they dropped by 25% and like every house lost 25% of its value, we would call it a crash. Yeah. Okay. Yes. But if prices were growing so ridiculously high and now we've dropped down to just barely making any money, that is the same as a crash if prices were reasonable, right? So I guess what I'm saying is you can't look at a crash and say that the house lost value. It's the delta between what it was doing before and what it's doing now. This could be the crash everybody's talking about all the time, because it used to be you bought a house and it gained 20, 25% in the first year that you had it. It was ridiculous. Okay. Now, if it's only gaining 1%, that's a significant drop. That could be the crash. And I'm bringing this up because if people are waiting for that $500,000 house to become worth 300, I don't think that's going to happen. I think if the house that was worth 500 and then was going to be worth 600 and is now only going to be worth 515, that is a crash. It just depends on how you're looking at it. And I'm going to keep saying this. What confuses us is the inflation. Okay. Our brains are not wired to understand how quickly the value of money changes. Like if the house is worth 500 in our head, it should just keep being worth 500. So if it goes down to, 450 or something like that, that's terrible. It's lost a lot of money. If it goes up to 600, that's incredibly good. But if $500,000 becomes worth the same as 600,000 and the house went from 500 to 600, you didn't actually gain anything. You just broke even. You kept up, right? So it's very confusing if you're relying on metrics like this to understand how the market is doing. If you understand how much your house should be going up, how much the price of everything should be going up because of inflation, then you don't get caught off guard waiting for prices of homes to drop when they've just basically like they're breaking even. That's a pretty significant drop from what it was doing before. That might be the crash people have been waiting for.
Yeah, and if you're a seller, you have to be realistic about what's happening in the market. You obviously have, had your head tucked between your legs if you think that it's going to continue to go up, depending on your market. Maybe some markets are still going up, but overall, you have to be realistic with what's happening specifically in your segment of the market. Is it going up? At what rate is it going up? And
Yeah.
what can you realistically get for your house right now? Because gone are the days that we had, 9, 10 months ago or 24 months ago, where you could just throw your house on the market, put it for 20K higher than your neighbor who sold it, 5 months ago, and just assume you're going to get it. Because you have to be much more strategic about how you price the house. But also, this is like, if you're looking to sell your house, this is a really important time to make sure you align yourself with a real estate agent that actually knows what they're doing and can get your house sold for you. Because gone are the days where you could get any real estate agent and they would just put it on the market and it would sell. You have to make sure that agent is skilled in pricing the house appropriately, but also in staging the home appropriately too. Because I can tell you from my perspective and the buyers that I'm working with now, the buyers are much more picky, because if they walk through a house and they start adding up all the dollar signs of the things that need to be done in terms of fixing that house, they're not going to want to pay top dollar for that house anymore. In the past, they would do whatever they could to get the house under contract. So as a seller, make sure you're aligning yourself with a listing agent, with a real estate agent that knows how to appropriately price it, but also knows how to stage it appropriately as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that got by with crappy work when the market was super hot and houses would sell themselves. Now, the sad thing is a lot of those people that hired discount agents or had bad ones don't realize how much money they left on the table, because you guys never know how much money gets left on the table. Like, you don't know when, 6 offers come in and the house was listed at 600 and the agent's like, look, we got one for 625 or 650. Let's take it. You have no idea what they did. On our team, we're going to be talking to every one of those buyers. We're going to find the 2 or 3 that are serious. We're going to tell them they need to be at 690 if they even want an opportunity. Then we're going to go to the other 2 people and say, these guys said they'll come in at 690. You need to be at 710, right? We're going to come back and say, good news, we got you an offer at 710, versus the bad agent who's like, good news, we listed at 600 and you got an offer of 625 and you think you crushed it and you actually left $90,000 on the table. That is very true. Well, now, if you have a bad agent, because your house just won't sell. It's just going to sit there. It's not going to do anything. And so, Kyle, you're exactly right. When and Lindsay's here too. She's our agent in Southern California. When the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked, and that's absolutely happening right now in real estate. The key for my money, where it's at, if you guys are going to be buying right now, I'm still buying right now, is you only buy the best stuff. This is not the time to get into the C-class neighborhood, the D+, the condo where there's a bunch of them. Like, if you think a recession could be coming, you don't want to go buy the cheapest thing. You want to buy the best thing. You want to buy the thing that's going to hold its value if things do turn around. You want to buy the thing that the tenants are going to be fighting to get into, or the person that can afford to rent there has the most money and is the safest when the recession comes. You don't want to be renting to the person, that works for Twitter and is like a low-level employee that's going to lose their job when things turn around. You want to be working for the person that's like, or sorry, renting to the person who has a high position at their company and makes good money and can afford to pay their rent when things turn around. And I say this because most people do the opposite. They're like, we might be going to recession. I should buy the cheapest house I could find, which is usually in the worst neighborhood, the worst location, the worst tenants, and those are the ones that get hit the hardest.
Let's jump back into this. Speaking of, right, sellers, buyers, what about the question, will 2023, are we going to see it more as a buyer's market, or is it going to be a seller's market? Is it a neutral market? So obviously for 2 years, if not longer, in a lot of markets, I know a lot of the California markets, probably the last 8 years, it's been a seller's market. Will 2023 favor buyers or sellers more in most markets? Greg McBride, chief financial analyst for Bankrate, says affordability issues and economic worries will depress home buyer demand, and inventory of homes for sale will remain limited. So it'll continue to be more of a balanced market than a tilting one way or the other. Krinsky expects leverage to vary nationally depending on the type of market. With the pandemic, we saw a new spike of bidding wars in suburban and smaller markets, likely because of the desire for more space and increased flexibility of remote working across the country. Says Krinsky, now that many offices and businesses are back near full capacity and fully operational, the hope is that larger markets can revert back toward pre-pandemic levels and we will see increased demand there. Johnson, on the other hand, anticipates sellers holding fewer cards. It will be a buyer's market next year, as many reluctant sellers, those waiting for the market to turn around, will likely capitulate, basically means surrender, adding to more housing supply. So, David, curious what your thoughts are on the whole concept of, is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? And how does that impact us as home buyers or home sellers and investors?
Well, first, you got to define what that means, right? A buyer's
Mhm.
market is defined as a market where the buyers have more of the leverage, meaning that there's less of them. They have more power in the negotiation. Seller's market's the opposite of that. It does not mean prices are high in a seller's market and prices are low in a buyer's market. Okay. Now, oftentimes when buyers have more power, it's because prices have come down. So there's a correlation there, but it's not exact. All right. We're in a buyer's market. We're in a position where the majority of the homes don't have a buyer for them, and buyers have way more leverage when negotiating than sellers do. And that's a general healthy market, should be more of a buyer's market. In a healthy real estate market, it should be hard to get a house sold. Buyers are picky. Sellers have to they're competing with all the other inventory out there. People get a house they really like at a price that they're happy with. That's ideal. It has not been ideal for a long time. We've not had enough inventory to make it ideal for a very long time. So it's been a seller's market for quite some time. Now, because it's been a seller's market, prices have continued to raise. And so buyers made a bunch of money buying into a seller's market. But I point this out because a lot of people think a buyer's market's good when you're a buyer. Not always. When you get a house in a seller's market, if that means the prices keep going up, you get a lot of equity, you get a lot more rent, you actually win. When you get a house in a buyer's market, if it stays that way for a long time, you don't gain equity, rents don't go up, you don't make as much money on the actual property. Okay. So what I think people have to do is focus on the best properties that are going to perform the best and buy them, the most of them, during a buyer's market, which is more or less where we are right now. You can know you're in a buyer's market. Here's the easiest way. If you write an offer and you get a counter offer, that's a buyer's market. If you write an offer and you don't get anything, you don't get acknowledged, or you get a multiple buyers counter offer, meaning we have several people that want this house and you're one of them, that's a seller's market. I think going into 2023, they're going to continue to keep rates high and maybe even keep inching them up, and it's going to continue to be a buyer's market. I don't think we're going to see a huge crash in prices, and I don't think we're going to see a spike in prices. I think we've got this beach ball that we pushed underneath the water. Our arms can only push so far. We might be able to extend a little bit more by raising rates, but in general, you're just holding it where it's at, and it's going to stay that way until rates come back down, and that's going to be like letting go of the beach ball, and then prices are going to explode up with all the demand that we have for housing.
Very well said. And yeah, that's the most important thing. You actually have to define what that means and then be specific about the market that you're in. By the way, we're about to bring someone live in here to chat with me and Dave. We're going to bring Jason in. But before we do so, just a reminder, if you want to come in and join us with this conversation, if you want to come talk like Jason is going to do here shortly, send a text message to the number below. We would like it to be related on the topic of what we're talking about tonight, market trends for 2023. Maybe come in, talk a little bit about your pain that you are suffering or going through. But the number is 833-777-0309. It's just right there on that little ticker at the bottom. We'd love to have you come in. So yeah, we're going to bring in Jason here, and he's going to chat a little bit. It's interesting though. Jason has a perspective on pain, but physical pain, like actual physical pain that he's had to endure and go through, and kind of what his relationship was with that pain. I think that can probably be applied to some degree of the pain that we have in our lives just to get to the next level. But then also has a question about using leverage as well. So Jason, welcome to the live. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, guys. Big fan. Thanks for having me, giving me opportunity and sharing with us. Oh yeah, so pain, interesting topic. I've always used my ambitions to, whether it's sports or my professional careers, to keep pushing myself. And the doctor called me a kamikaze athlete because I'd push myself till I'd break, whether it was in sports or with my businesses. And so now I'm at the point where, I've already had a couple surgeries because of my different incidences through my career. And I re-injured my ankle, which I had the ankle surgery in right before Christmas. And it's because I'm just pushing myself. And, I know enduring pain is so important, but at what point am I going about it the wrong way?
Okay. Are we talking about life? Are we talking about investing? Give me a little bit more specifics.
Physical pain. Like I had the ankle surgery done in right before Christmas last year. Started getting better. Started being able to use my ankle again, walk around, work and stuff. And then I pushed it during work. I didn't let up, and I kept pushing it. And now I've been like 3 weeks, ice, heat, 12 hours a day, up in the air. Keep it elevated. And I'm at this point because I didn't listen to the pain, I feel like. And it's a habit I have, because I know everybody wants to say push through the pain. And I feel like I've always been there and done that. But now I get to the point where the body breaks. The mind is more powerful than the body, where maybe most people, their body is more powerful than their mind. So this is kind of like the opposite, I think, of what you were explaining to people, and because of people's scenario, their mind is more their body's more powerful. They could actually physically do more, but their mind is holding them back, where it's like my body holds me back.
What do you think, Kyle? You want to start this one?
Yeah, I'll get this one started off. I had a couple notes that I wrote down. I think it's really important. The first thing that I would think you would need to do, whether that be in the physical realm, by the way, I'm not a doctor and neither is David, so please do not take any of this as financial advice, medical advice. This is all purely for entertainment and fun. That being said, the first thing I wrote down is listen, right? Mm-hmm. Listen to your body, listen to your doctor, listen to what the counsel or the experts in your lives are saying. You have an old pattern. At some point, it was probably a pattern that worked for you. It was a rewards-based pattern. You probably learned it when you were very, very young, that if you asserted yourself, if you worked hard enough, you would get some sort of end result that would be beneficial to you. However, that pattern is now being interrupted because your body can't do what it used to do. Right. And so the first thing you have to do is you actually have to listen, because your body is telling you that that pattern no longer works, and you have to find a new, better, healthy pattern for yourself. So that's the first thing that I wrote down, is listen to what's going on. And if you're going to relate it to real estate, make sure you're reading articles like we're talking about tonight. Make sure you're joining YouTube lives like this. Make sure you're in masterminds. Make sure you're listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast. You're doing all of those things to listen and be aware of what's happening around you. The second thing that I wrote down is, at some point, you have to learn to work smarter and not work harder, right? And so if you were used to just doing everything yourself, right? And let's just take this with running a business. If you were used to just being that solopreneur who put everything on his shoulders and said, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to do finances, operations, sales, marketing, social media. I'll do it all, right? Which we all have to do when we first start in things. But at some point, that starts to break, just like your body's breaking down. And you want to, at that point, start to work smarter and not work harder. But a lot of times, again, your reward system was always just push through, just push through, just push through. Well, you might have to shift your perspective and say, well, how can I be a better leader? How can I be a better hiring manager? How can I find talent? How can I retain talent? How can I be better at inspiring the people who work with me? How can I be better at creating systems and operations that they can follow to help them be successful, which will help me be successful? So sometimes the old just get after it, get after it, get after routine just doesn't always work. So that's my 2 cents. Listen and work smarter, not harder. How about you, David?
I like the question. I think it reveals another dimension or aspect of pain that we didn't cover the first time. So when we were talking about pain the first time, we should define that it's a form of discomfort and unsettledness, right? Physical pain or even emotional pain, really, one of the things that I'm very big on when it comes to this is why you don't want to just shove your pain down and avoid it, is it's there for a reason. Okay. Like when we run away from pain, we refuse to acknowledge that God put it there for a purpose. So I remember like 10 years ago, I heard this story on like Dateline NBC or something like that about this little kid, like 5-year-old girl that had this horrible disease where she couldn't feel pain. The nerves in her hand didn't connect to her brain or the nerves in her body. And her parents were terrified because they could not take their eyes off of her ever because she would get hurt and like they wouldn't know it. Right. So they told this horrible story of she grabbed a light bulb as a 5-year-old and they didn't know something was wrong until they smelled the burning flesh of her hand connecting to the glass of the bulb. Right. And it was like, you could just see like the agony they were in because they had to take her to the emergency room and they had to surgically remove this light bulb from her hand. And it was the smell of the flesh. Like if you didn't have pain in your life, which everyone wants to get rid of it. I don't want to have pain. I don't want to feel pain. You would be dead so fast. Can you imagine if like you touched the hot stove and you didn't immediately yank your hand away? Like you had to sit there and it was like 30 seconds. Like, what am I doing? Oh no, look, my hand's gone. Right. So pain serves a purpose. When you get hurt in a relationship or you get hurt physically or you feel any kind of pain, it's nature or God's way of telling you this is not the way that something is designed to operate. Okay. Now, sometimes we blame other people for the pain when it's ourselves. So like if your girlfriend leaves you and it feels horrible, you could get mad at her for leaving you, or you could look at it and say, this is what I get for, living at my mom's, sleeping on her couch as a 45-year-old guy, right? This pain is here because I need to recognize that I've been avoiding taking on responsibilities and it's telling me something's wrong. And I've now interpreted it as I need to get better. I had the same problem as you with physical pain. I have a body now with more injuries than I can even count because Kyle will attest to this. I was stupid. Like I was so single focused on what I was doing. If it was basketball, I played through ridiculous injuries. If it was cop stuff, I went through ridiculous injuries. I rarely ever went to get them treated. And if I did, as soon as I got relief from the pain, I was like, boom, I'm on the way. I never actually got the surgeries that I needed because I didn't want to stop working and stop making money. And like, I don't want it to hold me back from what my goals were. And now I'm paying consequences for that many, many areas of my life. Right. So when you're feeling physical pain, I think it's still there for a purpose. It's telling you your ankle isn't good. Like it shouldn't be walked on. There is a swelling or there's a broken bone or there's something. The wise person dives into their pain, which in this case would be going to get an x-ray, an MRI or a doctor or something to find out, well, is this just discomfort or is this actual injury? Right. I just tried to tough out everything that happened in my life from pain, right? If something hurt me emotionally, I didn't dive into it. I just like buried it in something else that I was doing and I didn't ever want to deal with it. That was my way of avoiding the pain. And it led to injuries in many kinds of my life, as opposed to just physically. I had mental injuries. I had emotional injuries. I had relationship injuries because I don't want to dive into the pain. I just told myself, be tougher, be faster, be stronger, compartmentalize. And that's come back to haunt me. Like many health issues that I have right now is because I did not listen to the symptoms or the pain that I had. So I don't want this to be interpreted like ignore your pain, right? You want the pain to fuel you, but in your case, the pain could be fueling you to get healed. And while you're sitting there on the couch, not able to work and it's driving you nuts, let that pain motivate you to read more books or reevaluate your life, right? Like I would still be working as a cop right now, working 20-hour days, probably weighing 400 pounds. It'd be terrible if I didn't have other people intervene in my life and tell me you have to stop this. Okay. I would have ignored all the pain and just kept going. It was other people stepping in saying this has to change, or me literally breaking a bone and being unable to do things while I healed, that sort of forced me to reevaluate, is this a path that I should stay on? And almost every time it is absolutely not a path I should stay on. Okay. I needed massive pain to even get my attention, to get me out of it. And like Kyle mentioned, there's other ways you could be accomplishing the things you're trying to accomplish that won't cause as much injury. What do you think after hearing that?
Yeah, I think you guys are on it. Those three big pieces right there, those keynotes. The listen, number one, I think that I'm so focused, I'm not listening to my body. And then number two, work smarter, find ways to implement processes, learn more so I can implement better things to work smarter. And then number three kind of goes with that, learn more. And I am, I'll spend, 12 hours a day, whether I'm listening to some Bigger Pockets with you on the car ride or just at home. ABCs of property management is what I'm on right now. I just finished the ABCs of real estate investing. I got to get Brandon's multifamily. I'm looking into multifamily right now in Georgia, Augusta. And then, just following up on crunching numbers, analyzing properties, finding my markets, and doing all that while I'm, ice up, ankle up. But yeah,
Let me see
I really
if I
like
can,
the three keynotes.
let me see if I can tie this into what we started this video talking about. So what do you do for work, Jason?
So I've been in the cannabis industry. I've medical, recreational, hemp, and now I've got a license here in Oklahoma, and partnered up with the owner. Took over his grow for like profit share and salary. He's got 3 dispensaries, really successful on the retail side of things. I took it over to make it profitable, and then I'm also been a real estate investor. So I'm looking to sell a couple of my,
At your day job, what does your actual daily activity tend to look like?
Walking the grow, giving instructions, writing down what's going to happen on the day agenda. Coming off from what was that yesterday, reading the EC pH of the plants, and making sure that their work day is on point, and then we have all our supplies, and kind of organizing, because we're cycling through the grow. So I just need to make sure we're either at a point where, basically.
So what's easier?
And running a lot of errands. That's how I heard it. That's how I ended up hurting it. I was running errands.
That's what I was
no pun intended.
Right.
Yeah. So
you
in
walk
the car,
your grow,
driving. Yeah.
You do your tests. You see what needs to get done, and then you go do it. Right.
Then I give the instructions. I'm not a physical labor guy. I give.
Well, how did you hurt your ankle if you're not a physical labor guy?
Just because I've been overseeing, driving to different stores, standing online is how I heard it.
Okay.
Standing online, getting and actually talking with one of the reps or sales associate about going over some stuff. We had some broken equipment. We were trying to figure out why it was broken. The guy who deals with that wasn't there. Nobody could figure it out. And I just, one day I had to put my weight on my other ankle, not the one I had surgery. I had to put the weight on the other one. And then I over to that, favoring one. And then it just went back and forth. And and then also I was doing a rehab on a house I just bought after work. Mm-hmm. My buddy from Georgia came to help me with the rehab. So, I'm up at 6, go to sleep at 12. So I'm going, even if I'm not at the grill,
so here's what we were getting at with where we started the video talking about. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's admirable that you're working this hard and that you're hustling this hard. Okay. But it is also easier for you to go do the rehab work yourself and to go run the errands yourself and to go check on all this stuff than it is to try to find a human being that you can rely on to do that for you. Okay. And as human beings, me included, we will always take the easier road when we're offered one of 2 options, right? I would have continued working as a cop till I was, however old I needed to be. I just would have kept, because that was easier than having to learn how to be a real estate agent, which meant I had to develop myself, and I didn't want to. I did not have a personality. I did not know how to make small talk. I was not fun and friendly. Like, I wouldn't be sitting here making videos like this, working the podcast, if I had just stayed as a cop. Okay. That happened because what was easier was taken away from me. and I couldn't do it anymore. It was actually plantar fasciitis. It's funny that you mentioned that literally prevented me physically from being able to be a cop. I could not stand there in front of a suspect or on an assignment or anything and focus because the pain was just so intense. Right. That changed my life. Now, like, I'm always sitting or I'm always walking. I rarely ever stand in one place. But because of that, I've been forced to have to now work through other people. Right. That's why Kyle's here now. That's why we have teams. It's why the advice that I give people for working in real estate is always about building a team and getting other people to do stuff. Pain is what stopped me from doing the easy thing and forced me to do it in a more efficient way. What I'm getting at is you're the same way as me and everybody else. We're going to do what's easier. We're not going to want to look at ourselves and say, how do I become more influential, more powerful, more wise, more whatever, so that I can hire other people to do some of the stuff for me. We're going to be like, I'll do it myself. It's easier. It's faster. I do it the right way. So the pain that you're going through is going to force you to accept that you need to be a better version of Jason tomorrow than you are today. That the version of Jason right now is not good enough because he was doing it himself. Ideally, everyone else would be doing this stuff for you. And then you really hit next level when the people that you have doing stuff for you, you influence them so much that they learn how to train other people to do that stuff too. That's the hard freaking thing. And it all comes down to our character. It's not easy to be a leader and get other people to do stuff. People let you down all the time. It's very difficult. But the pain that you have right now with your ankle is a blessing if you let it motivate you to think of like, what would I need to do to be able to find people that could do this stuff for me so I don't have to, and become the kind of man that other people want to follow, which is very difficult, but it's definitely worth it.
Wow. Yeah. Super deep. You said something about it being deep in the beginning, but I felt like you got it even deeper right there on another note, and definitely tied it back to the beginning.
Dude, I'm so glad you came on because it gave me a classic practical example that everybody could hear when we were just originally talking like philosophical perspective. Now the people can see this is what it looks like applied to real freaking life.
Right. Yeah. On a hard level too. That wasn't an easy diagnosis there, Doc.
Well, you also had to be transparent enough with us to tell us, like, you know, this is what I did and this is why it went bad. And no one would ever look at your work ethic and criticize you for it, but you could be even better than this. You have it in you to be even better than where you are now.
Yeah, I think like one of the things,
nailed it. Could be even better.
If you look at it from like a biological perspective, right? Like, why do we feel pain in the first place? It's our body's way of telling us that something is wrong. If your hand is on that oven or on that stovetop and you're holding it there, and if your brain did not send the message to like, hey, take it, that hurts, take it off, you're just going to continue to be in pain, right? So it's literally our brain is letting us know that something needs to change, right? And for your kind of figurative pain that you're going through with, you know, and it's real pain obviously with your ankle and stuff, but even the figurative pain that you're facing, of like, hey, I have to do something different. Literally, it's your body's way of telling you, Jason, something needs to change, right? So this is that opportunity, like David's talking about, to really take self-reflection and be like, all right, what do I need to do differently? And yeah, I'm on the same page with you. David and I have this ongoing inside joke that I've been saying to him for 20 years, that everything that David says is deep and profound. So it's always true.
Well, thanks, Jason. You set a great example for everybody here of what it looks like to be honest and transparent and humble about, like, you're already doing great. I could tell from what you're saying, people trust you. You're a hard worker. If this guy's turned his business over to you, you're a man of character. Like, you're doing really good things and you're hustling, doing your own stuff. So it's not like you're a bad guy. It's just, you could be better. Right. And this is the universe's way or God's way, or however you want to look at it, of giving you that opportunity to be better. And pain is what it takes to get our attention and motivate us to take that next step.
Wow. Great conclusion, man. Great summary.
Thanks, man.
On the pain topic. Well,
yeah.
How about the real estate? Yeah. So going into today's market, and as we move forward and we, try to prophesize, Nostradamically speaking, what is the best strategy in your mind if you have capital to deploy it in a way that you can have your passive income out and generate more than your expenses, so you could basically live off your investment, and that's your goal, while take some of that capital money and also use it as a down payment that you're going to have to rely on, your tenants and that whole real estate asset paying for itself back, but manage risk to the point where you're putting a percent of your capital to buy your assets free and clear, and then use a percent of your capital to use as a down payment so you can acquire bigger assets for the future to generate wealth. What's a good risk management strategy? I feel like it's kind of a tricky question. And just with what I've said, does that make sense, or should I try to add a little bit more details or be more specific?
Are you following, Kyle?
A little bit. You might. Can you recap that in like
all right, so here I can break it down. Yeah, like, okay, say you have like $1 million or X amount of money. What percent of that do you buy assets that you for long-term hold that you want to cash flow so you can generate wealth and income? And what percent of that would you use as a down payment? Because I feel like that's always going to be riskier, because if something defaults, you're going to owe the bank, or you're going to owe whoever you took the loan from. So what's a good strategy to manage risk while deploying your capital, letting it make?
So you're saying how much of it do you use to buy property as a down payment, and how much of it do you keep in reserves?
Oh no, actually buy 100% outright.
Like,
okay, so how much should you be financing?
Yeah, how much should you be financing? Yeah, how much should you finance with your own money, and how much should you finance with other lending money?
I don't think that paying cash for things is necessarily as safe as what it appears to be.
Huh.
All right. So let's say you got $1 million and you could buy a house for $500,000 cash. Okay. Or you could buy it for $500,000 and borrow $400,000. All right. So if you borrowed $400,000 to buy this house that cost $500,000 and you had $1 million in capital, you would still have $600,000 left over, right? How long do you think you could make the payments on a $400,000 note with $600,000 in reserves?
I just got a call coming and I had to hang up.
You want me to restate it?
Imagine that. Will you say it again?
Yeah. If you bought a house that was $500,000, you put 20% down, so you borrowed $400,000, but you had $600,000 still left. Okay. And the tenant couldn't make their payment, or you had a vacancy or an eviction, or something went wrong, right? How long could you float that thing with $600,000 in reserves?
Yeah. I mean, you could a long time.
Man. Way longer than you need.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's say that you do the same thing and you buy 4 houses like that. So you borrow $1.6 million and you put $100,000 down on every one of them. So you still have, in this case, $600,000 set aside, but now you own 4 houses instead of 1. How long can you make the payments on $1.2 million if you've got $600,000, right? What I'm getting at is taking all your money and dumping it into the property, and like, I don't have a mortgage, feels safe. But it's not a whole lot different than if you keep that equity in your bank account, where you can use it for a lot of different things, including making payments in case your tenants don't pay. You're never going to have like 10 years of vacancy on every property, right? Unless you're just terrible at being an investor and you never you have to try hard to be that bad, right? So I tend to err on the side of continually I finance, and then I just put all the money that I would have put down, I put it in reserves. I don't freaking touch it. I put it in reserves. And then I keep making more money, and I put those in reserves. When my reserves get really big, I go finance more. I borrow as much as I possibly can. I keep all the rest in reserves. I want to know that if my tenant stopped paying on a certain house, I can make the payment for 4 years based on my reserves if I absolutely had to, and then I don't have to worry about it. I'd rather do that than just pay it off, because I still owe property taxes. I still own maintenance. I still have vacancy. I still have capital expenditures. And when you look at the whole thing, the mortgage is not like 100% of your bills for a property. It might be less than half of it. So you could pay something off and still not be able to fix the things that go wrong if you don't have money. When the roof is replaced, when the AC goes out,
right.
And no one thinks about it. They just think the mortgage is their only expense. It's not.
The big scary, it's the one that could cause the deathy, oh, well, I guess
it could cause the
it could be more
foreclosure.
than
But what
that.
happens if your roof needs to be fixed and you have no money to fix it, right? Like now you can't collect any rent because your tenant,
Yeah.
like there's other things that can still go down. You can't pay your property taxes. They can still put a lien on your house and take it. So rather than just think I need to pay it off, I'd be thinking like I need to keep working and keep putting money aside.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I feel like the other part is, okay, once I put that money aside, it goes back to the inflation. Now that money, I just see it dwindling.
Whereas so the way you offset that's so true. The way you offset it is you put money aside, which loses its value, but you financed more of what you bought, and the more that you owe when inflation comes, the better you are. So you want to take on as much debt as you possibly can. That's how you balance it. We call this portfolio architecture in my world. We talk about like designing a portfolio itself that decreases the risk as opposed to just looking at every single property as its own thing, right? This is why we talk about the phrase like build a financial fortress, right? Like there's moves you can make like what we're describing that offset risk that will stop you from losing properties when you see the whole picture. So appreciate you asking these questions and letting us talk about that.
And what about putting your money into a whole life insurance policy so you can have your money work twice?
Can you lend against it?
Can you leverage? So you could borrow. So your money is making you interest, and then you can borrow from it if you need.
That's one of the ways that I say that's another area of defense that you just added. And if you can borrow 80% of it, it doesn't really hurt you that much. So I do like that method.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Well,
thanks, Jason.
Thank you guys very much.
Peace. See you, man. Yeah, really good conversations and good questions tonight, I feel like.
Yeah, you picked good people. When you got your hat backwards like that, I know you're really feeling yourself, and so we're gonna have a good show. Yeah. You remember the old Sylvester Stallone movie, Over the Top?
Let's go, man! Right now, let's see who can win virtually. Yeah. Yeah. So we actually have, I think we have time for one more question coming in. Jared actually has a question. When it comes to market predictions, specifically related to California real estate, because Jared is actually from the Sacramento area, which is where I'm at and the David Green real estate team is at. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, by the way, the David Green real estate team, we can help you buy, sell, or invest. We can help you with house hacking. We can help you just about any strategy here in California, whether that be Northern California or all the way down to Southern California. We've got pretty much the whole state represented. So if you ever want to work with us, just reach out to us, send an email to info@davidgreen24.com. We would love to help you out. But anyways, back to Jared. Jared is a member or a local resident in the Sacramento area, and he has a question really related to moving people, all the mass exodus out of California, and what are your thoughts on whether that's going to impact California real estate? So Jared, welcome to the show. Did I get your question right?
Oh, yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. First off, I just wanted to thank you for the last hour and a half. I've been working out, so you guys have been with me on my workout.
You're going through pain.
Yep. So I live right there in Rockland, and I have a rental property in Loomis. And during the last few years, we've seen a whole bunch of people move from the Bay Area to our area, and it's propped up the prices. But now it seems like a lot of them are starting to leave, and then people are still leaving California. So just wondering what you think with this whole exodus that's been happening. Do you think, using a crystal ball, that it's going to continue, or do you think it's going to stabilize, or do you think it's going to turn around?
What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, the amount of Bay Area people moving to Sacramento has considerably slowed from what it was during COVID, as well as the amount of people moving out of the state. People are still moving out of the state, but you got to also look historically, what was it like pre-COVID? And my thought process is it was the same. There were still people moving out to Sac from the Bay Area. It wasn't as many as we saw in the last 2 years, but you're still going to see people continue to leave the Bay Area to a more affordable place like Sacramento. So that transition is still going to be there. It's just not going to be as hot as what it used to be, right? So we're still going to have that, especially with the amount of tech that's coming out to the area. Obviously, the amount of hospitals that are being built. there's just a lot more opportunities for people to come to a more suburban area like Sacramento and get more bang for their buck. In terms of people moving out of the state, I feel like the same thing. I feel like it's not going to have as big of an impact because we're not seeing as many people leave California like we did in the last 2 years. So to me, I don't think it's going to have as big of an impact because California has sort of always been that way. It's just was one of those big headlines that we looked at. So for Sacramento itself, I just don't see it having that big of an impact.
What do you think so far, Jared?
Oh no, I don't know. It seems to me like it's worse than that. Like just my gut feeling. A lot of wealthy people are leaving, and with them, a lot of their tax base. A lot of companies are leaving. I mean, in the Bay Area, HP started Silicon Valley and it left. It left Silicon Valley. So I don't know. It scares me. I kind of feel like I'm an idiot for staying sometimes.
That's probably a bit of an overreaction. I don't think you're an idiot for staying. I think what you're saying is true. Like there are wealthy people that are leaving, and there are people that tend to be like 50 to 60 years old, and they are taking their tax base with them. So you're not wrong about that. I think in Los Angeles, it's significantly worse than in Northern California. Like the people that are leaving LA, and a lot of them are famous. So you hear about the Ben Shapiros, the Joe Rogans, these people that are all moving and they're going to Texas or Florida. Patrick Bet-David left Los Angeles. I think that like the homeless problem there is really significant. So you see in that area of Southern California, but I bet if you looked at like San Diego, Orange County, like Riverside County, everywhere that isn't the city of LA, their populations are either not dwindling much or even growing, right? So I think some of these businesses are moving out, but the way that I tend to look at it is similar to what we were saying earlier, where we talked about home prices that are going up. Now they're not going up as fast. That's like a crash, right? There's so many people moving into California. There's so many companies that still want to be in California that even as we're losing some of them, we're just not growing as quickly as we were. It's incredibly difficult for me to see a world where California is like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome type, where no one wants to be here. It's too desirable. There's too many amenities. We will probably continue to see mismanagement of our state because that's what it is. It's really, really bad. Continuing. And then the pendulum will swing the other way. It always does. Like at a certain point, people, and we just think the point comes before it really comes, right? But at a certain point, like let's say that the prices of homes did go down. They were at 800, 700, 600, 400, 380, and we're like, California is completely collapsed, right? Well, if you're sitting there in like North Dakota, Oklahoma, Maine, and you're looking at, I can go to California for cheaper than where I am right now, they're all coming here. And now there's more demand, and now prices are going up, and now you have all these conservative-minded business people that moved here from another state, and now the voting population starts to shift a little, and the next thing you know, it's not going the same direction it was, right? So it can get worse, but I just don't want, like I said, markets change so quickly, right? If it did go into this like doomsday type scenario, it wouldn't stay there because there's people that would rather live in California than I don't think that you can compare us to anywhere. Florida's awesome right now. Humid as hell, crazy weird bugs, lizards everywhere. It's not as good as California. Texas is amazing, super humid, like still like uncomfortably hot. Not California. Like you could take any single state that's out there and they may have a better business environment. They may have different value systems. Like they have a lot of good stuff going for them. Objectively speaking, just the location, they don't have places to go snowboarding and go to the beach and go to the desert and go have amazing food and get super good weather. Like we have so much working for us here that other people don't have. We're just used to being like the 92 Olympic dream team. Okay. And so we're like, we dropped from beating everyone by 40 to only winning by 20 or by 15. And we're like really worried. But if you compare us to all the other options that are out there, we're still so much better. So I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about it.
Cool. One other question too. I know that you bought some short-term or kind of mid-term rentals in Maui. How are those doing for you? And what do you think the future is like there?
Those are doing amazing. The problem is Hawaii is continually cracking down on short-term rentals. the population there hates them because it makes their houses more expensive, and then local Hawaiians can't afford to buy them. So they put a lot of pressure on their politicians to get rid of these like wealthy mainlanders that come in and they buy their stuff, and it pushes the prices very high. And there's a very strong current in Hawaii of I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. Like, they're not super thrilled about people that are not Hawaiians coming in and owning their land and driving their prices up like anybody would be, right? Like, it's gentrification at an entire state level that's huge. So as long as that pressure's on politicians, they're going to keep cracking down on short-term rentals. There's a couple of zones where you don't have to worry. Like, they're basically zoned as hotels where they're not going to take that zoning away. But if you just own a regular house out there, you can't rent it as a short-term rental at all. And more of the condos in certain areas, they're saying, nope, can't do short-term rentals there either. So that's great for my investment because now there's more demand coming my way. But it's tougher if you're an investor trying to get into Hawaii. And the scary thing is I can't know with certainty which areas are going to be outlawed and which areas they're going to allow it to continue. Now, one of the, just rug pull out underneath you worst moments is when you go buy a short-term rental and the HOA or the area, whatever, says, nope, can't do this anymore. Like, there's nothing you can do at that point. You're so screwed. And when the market was going up, that risk was mitigated. Like, well, worst case scenario, I sell my house, I get my capital back, I go and do it again. Now that the market's dropped a little bit or is continuing to kind of trickle down, if you have to sell, it's much more difficult to do it. So that risk isn't mitigated as much as it was.
Yeah, cool. Hey, well, thanks. It was nice chatting with you guys.
All right.
For all
Thanks,
you
Jared.
do, by the
Get a
way.
good workout.
Thanks, Jared.
Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks.
What do you think, Kyle? I always ask you this right when you start to write things down. I'm the worst. I used to do this when I was a waiter. I'd walk up to the table and be like, so how's your food? Right when they put the bite in their mouth. I had terrible timing.
And it's like all coming out at the same time. I was just thinking really quick, kind of going back to that pain topic. I think like for you, one of the biggest kind of shifts or changes you ever made in your life was when you felt the pain of when you literally like hurt your ankle, right? And you had to get reconstructive surgery. Would you mind just sharing with people a little bit about like what that was like for you and how you processed that, how you went through that, and what you did to sort of keep a positive mindset and turn that into something powerful?
Yeah, that's still, when I look back, I remember the pain I felt. Like, it's still present. And I still have nightmares like I'm back at that time, right? So if you go back to that part of my life, basketball was my whole life. My identity was wrapped up in it. If I went to go play at just after high school, if I went to go play at 24 Hour Fitness and I played poorly, I was depressed until I could get back out there and have another game. Like, my identity was just tied that much to basketball. The problem is, my senior year, we had a new coach came in and he didn't play me. Whereas my sophomore year, I was asked to play with the varsity team. So I thought I was going to be this big shot. And then due to circumstances beyond my control, that wasn't what life had in the cards for me. And I watched you go off and play in college. And my dream had been to just want to keep playing. I wasn't ready for my career to be over, and it had to be. So there was a lot of emotional pain that was tied up in the fact that I couldn't do what I wanted. I lost my identity, and I was struggling with the fact that I wasn't good enough, which is every man's biggest fear. I had always carried around this fear that I wasn't good enough from a rough childhood. And now I thought I'd escaped it through basketball, and I'm plunged right back into these terrible emotions of not being good enough. And I got my first crush on a girl and she didn't like me back, and like that brought up the same stuff. So I was very depressed and in a lot of pain all the time, because even though I was like 18, that was my whole world at that time. So around 20 years old, I'm working out to go try to walk on at the college that I'm at, and I'm doing really, really good. I got a lot better during that time. I was playing a lot. I was playing against better competition, holding my own against some Division I guys. And during that training, I broke my ankle on our buddy Troy's foot. So I came down on his foot. I already had ligaments that were stretched really thin from all the other times I sprained my ankle. The ligament snapped when that happened. I didn't realize like how severe the injury was. It just hurt a lot. It was a sprained ankle that never really healed. Finally, after like 6 months of rehab, got an MRI, and the doctor came and apologized and said, I never should have had you doing rehab. like, this is an absolute significantly bad injury. I need to send you to a specialist. I'm not even qualified to fix you. This is really bad. So they had to go in there and re-stretch ligaments, tie them back into my ankle, drill holes into the bone so that blood flow could come in again and try to heal that area, take out all the broken pieces of bone that were floating around in there. And I had to go into a cast on my foot for 6 months, was on crutches where I couldn't walk. All my legs atrophied. Like, it was terrible. And so that dream that I got so close to having once again breaks. And not only does it break, but now I can't really distract myself with anything because I'm in a cast and I'm stuck at home as like, I can't work anymore. It was miserable. So the only thing that got me through it was I took all that pain and frustration and I channeled it into whatever positive things I could. So you wouldn't know it from looking at me now, but I used to, Kyle, you remember, I used to have an incredibly skinny body and pretty strong legs. Like, I was a beanpole. Well, when this happened, my legs were atrophying, which I didn't realize, but I started working out my upper body a lot. I would just go to the gym like every single day and crutch around in the gym and stay there for 3 hours, just lifting as much as I could because I needed something to do. And I started reading a lot more books, stuff about Christianity, kind of digging deeper into what I had been told or what I believed and asking myself tough questions and getting exposed to a different perspective that I hadn't had, having deeper conversations with people because, like, what else was I going to do? I really started pouring into the relationships I had with other people because I needed something to keep me out of my own head and my own depression. Like, I wasn't able to make money. I wasn't able to play basketball. I wasn't able to do all the things that my identity had been wrapped up in. And it was an incredibly painful time. And then the problem is, once I healed, it didn't actually heal. It took a long time, and I never ran as fast as I used to. I never jumped as high as I used to. I ran out of eligibility. It was pretty bad. So, like, that dream just got taken away from me. And it was incredibly painful because the dream was more than just a dream. The dream is my identity and the plan that I had for the life I wanted. Now, what I ended up doing was taking all of the tenacity, the focus, the ambition, the drive that I wanted to put into basketball, and I put it into my job when I could walk again. So I put it into being a waiter. And I was like, if I can't be good at that, at least I'm going to be good at this job. That was very important to me. Like, I worked at it like a team, and I was trying to be the best. I was challenging myself and pushing myself. Like, how many tables can I wait on at one time? How many days a week can I work? How late can I stay? How good of a tip can I get? How much money can I save? That was really where I sort of developed a lot of the stuff that I write about in Pillars with money management and gamifying what you're doing to push yourself to be able to make more and not just hitting cruise control like the rest of the people I worked with that just showed up, waited their tables, went home. They weren't trying to get the most that they could out of it. And then after that is when I went into my law enforcement career, and I wanted to get the absolute most that I could out of that. Because if I wasn't going to be able to play basketball, I was going to give my best at the law enforcement career. Those were all the principles that we'd had drilled into our head from the coaches we had, and the feeling of wanting to be the best that we could be, the pain of not being able to compete. I just threw it into the law enforcement career. So I would learn all the policy, study everything as much as I could, performed as well as I could. I would go into every test praying, like, help me to do as good as I can at whatever thing I'm doing. Whereas all the other people going through it were like, you just have to do it. Just a box you got to check. Everybody I noticed in life lived it like a box you got to check, versus me. I was like, how do I get the top score that I possibly can get? How do I listen to my instructors and my teachers and just suck every single bit of info that I can out of them that would give me an edge? Because I was looking at everything like a competition with myself, even though I couldn't necessarily compete with other people in sports. And so that eventually sort of replaced the identity of a basketball player with the identity of someone who's just trying to be the best at whatever it is they're doing.
That's really good. Yeah, I wrote down a few things to sort of recap what you said. The first part was like there was this undoing of who you were, and this redoing or this rewrite of who you were becoming, right? And almost a rewriting of your identity and an openness that you had to actually be that. Because you could have just like been depressed. You could have just victimized yourself, and you could have just been sad and been like, my life sucks. I'm just going to do as little as it takes to get by and just kind of numb my own pain. But then I really like what you said about when you went back into your server job, once you were able to get back on your feet, there was a redistribution of the energy that you were taking or putting towards basketball. And you said, okay, well, I'm not putting it towards that anymore, but I can put it towards everything that I'm working on now. I can put it towards being a cop. I can put it towards being being a waiter. And like, that's so important for us to realize when something has been cut off from us for whatever reason, whether it be a strained relationship, maybe it be a job, maybe it be a struggle that you're encountering in school, whatever it is, you can take that energy that you were putting that into and put it into something else as opposed to just sitting around. And then one of my favorite things was like you took the time to like read and think and listen and grow in relationships. And like you asked critical questions, not only about yourself, but about other people. I think that's about the time when you and I started to get really close too, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to take away from that, you guys. I would not let that go over your head right now because there's just so much good stuff that you can kind of go into and take from what David's done. And I'm sure you guys have all encountered similar things in your lives in terms of the pain. But boy, pain can be a great motivator. It can be a great catalyst for big shift and big change. And I'm sure a lot of people are going through a lot of pain right now, whether that because of the, they've lost a job, because of the upcoming recession, because of the market, because of strained relationships and us being in the holidays. What a great opportunity to just like reshift, right? And redistribute the energy that we've been putting into other things and really focus on big and new things for yourself. So really exciting.
Such a good point. I wanted to buy real estate, so I had to make money. If I wanted to make money, I had to improve myself. If I wanted to improve myself, I had to start with humility and recognizing who I am isn't enough. And that's why videos like this start at that point, because there's all things we want. Those are good. You should want them, but you should also recognize the reason you don't already have them is because the version of you that you are right now is not worth those things. And that's okay because God made all of us with the ability to grow and to change and to evolve and to improve. And we all respect the people who have done that the most. So if you want to respect yourself, embrace that about yourself, that you're here for self-improvement and that the rewards are worth it.
Really good stuff. Yeah, love it. For those of you that don't know, we were not planning on talking about any of this pain stuff at all today. I think it just came up organically and it was probably meant to be shared and spoken about. So hopefully you guys are getting really good value out of it. If you are, or even if you're not, just do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the thumbs down button if you don't like it. We don't care. The algorithm likes any kind of engagement, but don't forget to subscribe and come back and watch these videos. We do them every single week. I saw a question earlier that said, hey, where were you last week? If you weren't here at the beginning, well, David was sick, so we had to cancel it. If David's not well, we can't do it. So, but yeah, we're still planning on doing these every single week. So, and if you're interested in learning more about the mastermind, we do that every Monday night and every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And that's a private mastermind. That's for people who are looking to build wealth, looking to, as David says, build their pillars, right? Have a better offense, which is making more money, more side hustles, more income, growing, mastering your skills. Defense, cutting down all the unnecessary expenses, having a really good, clean, tight, but fun budget, and then investing, right? And so we have lots of different guests coming on different topics related to real estate investing, to crypto, to finance, to budgeting, you name it. A lot of the experts that David gets to rub elbows with, we're bringing them into the mastermind for everybody to learn about.
All right. Well, thank you, Kyle. Great job as usual.
Absolutely. Well, wish everybody a great rest of their Black Friday. And on behalf of Mr. David Nostradamus Green and myself, thank you everybody for joining. And we will see you guys here next Friday at the same time, 5 p.m. Pacific. See ya.